Hey, what's going on, Climber Nation? Patrick here. So this year we've hired on a new guy on the crew. His name is Tom, and this is a little clip from a few weeks ago. Is this the biggest tree you've ever dropped, Tom?
I'd say so.
Yeah? Right on. So this is a nice little maple. We've already taken off all of the lower branches with the pole saw. It has some sort of a bench thing built around it, but that's all getting smashed. So we figured it was a perfect opportunity, nothing really to hit, perfect opportunity for Tom to cut down something. So he's dropped pegs before, but never an actual full-size tree. So we do have the skid steer on site. We're using it to pull this over here. Not that it needs a hard pull or anything, it doesn't, but all right, so he's getting started here. So this is something that I always teach people for felling. The classical method is to make your flat cut first and then try and match it with an angle cut. But in my experience and the experience of everyone else that I've ever talked to who has done it the opposite way, it's always easier to do it the opposite way. You make your angle cut first and then you match it up with a flat cut. Now you're using the sights on the saw for your aim. You're using the sights in the exact same way as you would in the old school flat cut first method. It's always just going to be easier to match up to an angled cut with a flat cut as opposed to making a flat cut first and then pulling your saw out and turning it on an angle and starting a new cut and trying to match up to that flat cut that you've already made, if that makes sense. And I've mentioned this before as well. You make your two cuts, get them close, and then grab an axe and smash that wedge out of there. Don't just try and keep cutting until the wedge falls out on its own. Do you know what I mean?
So yeah, every time before I start a back cut, I just want to double check that my bar is long enough. So I know if I have to do that plan that we talked about. Just barely. So it's over here, it's about like a half an inch out. So you're probably going to have to do both sides like we did.
So also, especially when you're beginning, you're going to find it a lot easier to make your face cut when you're standing on the right-hand side of the tree, and your back cut when you're standing on the left-hand side of the tree. As well, I would encourage, for any beginner in tree felling, I would always encourage you to make all three cuts using the bottom of the bar. Don't try and cut anything with the top of the bar when you're starting.
No, come up a little bit. Come up a little bit.
Now this is a major point of contention among people who teach felling. For years, the classical method for felling was that you would make your back cut higher than the apex of the notch, usually a couple inches higher. I'm of the opinion that this idea comes from working in the bush, where a lot of times where you're working uphill, and in that situation you definitely want to step your back cut up, because as the tree comes over, if it hits the hill, it wants to bounce off and fling itself backwards down the hill, and that step would prevent that, hopefully, from happening. But for most of the stuff that we do on flat ground or whatever in normal situations, I don't recommend making your back cut significantly higher than the apex of the notch.
Where that end is as I'm cutting, I'll just constantly be pulling it out so I can visualize that line, right?
Yeah, so that's another point. You know, whenever your bar is, like, this is a 20-inch bar, not that that's a long bar, but it's very, very difficult as you're making a back cut to visualize where the far tip end of the bar is, right? You can see the end of the bar on the saw end, it's right there in front of you, but you can't see the tip end, so you're trying to visualize it. There she goes.
All right, let's see how you did. Not bad at all.
Too bad for an angle.
It is a little bit low here.
Yeah. It's kind of going like that.
What's that?
From my point of view, it just looked like it kept doing this.
Oh.
Like a fish was on the end of it, like it wanted to go.
Oh. No, that's a good cut.
Nice.
Hell of a job.
Yeah. Sweet.
This is,
little low.
this is his biggest tree to date.
Perfect. Oh, that one's bigger, isn't it?
No, this is like an actual tree. That was just a peg.
Okay. Oh, I thought you
I think
maybe.
that's the first tree I've taken down that's not a peg.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you never forget your first tree. You get to tell everybody how the ground shook when it hit, you know?
I smashed these boards.
Oh man, it's way better than a fish story.
Took 2 of us to hold the tree. It was so big.
Awesome.
Right on.
All right, well, I'm gonna get some coffee while you guys clean this up.
Right on. Well, I hope that makes sense. I hope you can get some value out of that. I would say his back cut was a bit low, and that is one thing that you definitely want to avoid. I will either make my back cut match the level of the apex or just slightly above, but not these big steps that a lot of people teach. But anyway, hopefully you can get some value out of that, and until next time, fist bump.